The CIC Empire, an emerging force in the galaxy, took pride in its disciplined warriors and cutting-edge military technology. Their conquests had been swift and decisive, leaving shattered civilizations in their wake. Confident in their ability to dominate, CIC sought new challenges to expand the Empire's influence. Soon, they turned their attention to Earth, a world they deemed primitive and insignificant. The CIC believed that despite humans' reputation as fierce warriors, they were no match for the CIC's superior strategy, technology, and military precision. The Galactic Council, familiar with humanity, tried to intervene, warning the CIC not to underestimate humans, as Earth's strengths extended far beyond what could be measured by conventional means. Humans had a history of resilience and adaptability, traits that made them especially dangerous in prolonged conflict. The Council's warning was direct: do not provoke the humans unless prepared to face consequences that cannot be foreseen. But the CIC leadership was not easily swayed, dismissing the warnings as the concerns of the weak. They were confident their advanced weaponry and tactical superiority would easily subdue humanity. Determined, CIC elites sent a group of their best soldiers to Earth on an intelligence mission to observe humanity's military strength, assess potential threats, and prepare for a swift conquest. The mission started with confidence, as the CIC soldiers, having fought numerous species before, believed this would be no different. Initially, they perceived humans as reliant on technology to enhance their abilities, expecting to find advanced weapons, cybernetic enhancements, and robotic combat units at the core of human warfare. To them, this mission was routine reconnaissance before inevitable victory. However, upon arriving on Earth, their expectations were completely overturned. As they observed human military exercises, they were surprised by the absence of technological spectacle. Instead of sophisticated weapons or cybernetics, they saw groups of human soldiers engaging in standard drills, physical training, endurance exercises, and manual combat. To the CIC methods appeared primitive, basic even. They had anticipated cutting-edge warfare but found themselves watching soldiers run, march, and engage in hand-to-hand combat. Confusion took hold as the CIC soldiers couldn't comprehend how such seemingly basic methods had earned humans their deadly reputation. These exercises seemed trivial in comparison to the precision and technological superiority mastered within CIC ranks. Yet, beneath their confusion grew curiosity. Could there be more to human warfare than what was initially seen? As they continued to observe, the CIC soldiers began to notice something unexpected. They began to respect the discipline and focus of the human soldiers. Every drill was carried out with intense concentration, perfect synchronization, and precise coordination. They witnessed a level of mental and physical preparation unlike anything they had seen before. Though the methods seemed simple, the execution was flawless. Each unit moved like a well-oiled machine, with undeniable discipline. The CIC had believed their own species to epitomize military discipline, found themselves intrigued by the dedication of these human soldiers. There was something beyond technology at play. As the days passed, the CIC editors started to question their original assumptions. Could it be that human strength did not lie in advanced weaponry or technology, but in their capacity to push themselves beyond normal physical and mental limits? The more they watched, the more they began to realize that human warfare was not based on technology alone. Instead, it was rooted in something more fundamental: a relentless drive to improve, adapt, and survive. The CIC soldiers realized humans were not just training their bodies but also their minds. Each drill was designed to build endurance, teamwork, and mental toughness essential for facing overwhelming odds. This was no ordinary military they were observing. This was a culture built on resilience. As the CIC soldiers pieced things together, they saw that human warfare was far more complex than initially thought. While technology was present, it wasn't the central element. Humanity's strength was in its endurance, its ability to outthink and outlast adversaries with sheer willpower. Their early dismissal of human military practices as primitive began to shift. There was undeniable power in the way humans prepared for battle, something the CIC had never encountered before. They began to question whether their assumptions had been wrong from the beginning. Could the Galactic Council's warnings hold more truth than they had realized? Could it be that beneath humanity's quiet, unassuming exterior lay a force far more dangerous than the CIC had anticipated? The CIC soldiers, once brimming with confidence, now found themselves filled with doubt. Though they had yet to witness a full-scale battle, the discipline and determination displayed by human soldiers spoke volumes. It became clear that humanity's strength didn't come from advanced technology, but from their innate drive to overcome challenges, no matter how insurmountable. The CIC had underestimated them. The real discovery was dawning. Human strength wasn't just physical, it was psychological, deeply embedded in their culture of resilience. The CICC soldiers had come to Earth expecting to find a species inferior to their own. Instead, they had found a force of nature, waiting for the right moment to strike. Confident in their superiority, the CICC launched a surprise attack on a strategically important human colony on the edge of Earth's reach. Their advanced fleet, armed with cutting-edge technology and weaponry, moved in unison, disabling the colony's defenses within minutes. The CIC forces struck decisively, neutralizing key defense installations and quickly establishing air dominance. As their ground troops descended, they carried an air of absolute confidence, believing that the humans would crumble under their might. In the early stages of the invasion, things went exactly as the CICC had expected. Their superior weapons gave them a clear advantage, and the initial human response seemed to confirm their belief that humanity was weak. The CICC ground forces, equipped with advanced armor and precision weapons, easily secured key positions throughout the colony. There was little resistance at first, and the few human soldiers they encountered were quickly overpowered by the CIC's overwhelming firepower. It appeared to the CICC commanders that victory was imminent, and that humanity would soon be just another conquered species added to their empire. However, as the CICC pressed deeper into the colony, something unexpected began to occur. What had started as a swift and easy victory soon turned into a prolonged struggle. Initially caught off guard by the speed and ferocity of the attack, the humans quickly regrouped. Although their defenses had been crippled and their forces scattered, they did not flee. Instead, the human colonists, both military personnel and civilians, adapted to the situation. Makeshift resistance groups formed, and while small in number, their efforts became more coordinated with each passing hour. Rather than confronting the CICC forces head-on, which would have been suicidal given the technological disparity, the humans employed guerrilla tactics. Small, highly mobile units of soldiers and civilians began launching hit-and-run attacks on the CICC forces, targeting supply lines, ambushing patrols, and using the colony's terrain to their advantage. The CICC, overwhelming their enemies with brute force, were unprepared for this type of resistance. They had expected the humans to either surrender or be annihilated, but instead, they found themselves facing an enemy that refused to give up. Human resilience, one of their defining traits, became increasingly apparent as the battle dragged on. Despite being technologically outmatched, the humans demonstrated an uncanny ability to adapt their tactics and make the most of the limited resources they had. Civilians who had never held a weapon before joined the fight, using whatever they could to slow the CICC's advance. Engineers and technicians, once responsible for maintaining the colony's infrastructure, repurposed their skills to create improvised explosives and sabotage the CICC's equipment. Communication networks, which had been disabled by the SCICE, were slowly restored, allowing human resistance fighters to coordinate their efforts more effectively. For the first time since the invasion began, the CICC started to sense that something was wrong. This was not the easy victory they had anticipated. In previous conquests, other species had either surrendered or fled in the face of their superior technology. But the humans were different. They neither fled nor begged for mercy. Instead, they fought back with a tenacity that the CICC had never encountered. The more the CIC pushed, the more the humans adapted and resisted. For every patrol the CIC sent out, another ambush was waiting. For every supply line they established, human sabotage was there to disrupt it. CIC commanders who had been so confident hours before now found themselves frustrated and confused by an enemy they couldn't predict or control. As the CICC pressed deeper into the colony, they began to realize that they had severely underestimated their enemy. The humans were not merely fighting for survival, they were fighting with a determination and resourcefulness that the CICC could not comprehend. Though scattered and vastly outgunned, the human forces managed to inflict significant damage on the invaders through clever tactics and sheer willpower. The CICC soldiers, despite their superior weapons, found themselves in constant danger as they moved through the streets, never knowing when or where the next attack would come from. CICC commanders, for all their military prowess, struggled to adapt to this new kind of warfare. They had expected to crush the humans with their technological superiority, but technology alone was not enough. The humans exploited the weaknesses in the CICC's rigid strategies, fighting with an unpredictability the CIC had never seen before. Their refusal to submit only made the invaders' task more difficult. Frustration among the CIC leadership grew, as what had been planned as a swift and decisive conquest was now turning into a drawn-out battle. The CICs were spread thin, trying to maintain control over a colony that was fighting back from every corner. Though seemingly weaker on the surface, the humans had proven to be far more dangerous than the CICIC had anticipated. Their adaptability, resilience, and relentless spirit were qualities the CICIC had not factored into their invasion plans. The CICIC had entered the human colony with confidence, expecting their advanced technology and overwhelming force to swiftly crush any resistance. However, they had not anticipated the adaptability and creativity of their human adversaries. Faced with certain defeat in a conventional battle, humanity shifted to guerrilla warfare. The CICIC, trained for large-scale battles and direct confrontations, were ill-prepared for the unconventional tactics they now faced. Instead of engaging in head-on battles, human forces fragmented into small, mobile units that used the colony's landscape to their advantage. These human units struck hard and fast, then disappeared before the CIC could mount a meaningful response. Patrols were ambushed in dense forests, urban alleyways, and narrow mountain passes. The humans avoided areas where the CIC's superior technology would give them an edge, instead focusing on places where the terrain neutralized the invaders' advanced sensors and weaponry. Guerrilla fighters hit supply convoys, disrupting the invaders' flow of resources and ammunition, and set traps that targeted the CIC's logistical hubs. The humans understood their limits but also knew the weaknesses of the CICIC and exploited them ruthlessly. As these guerrilla attacks mounted, the CICIC began to lose their grip on the situation. Each day brought new reports of lost patrols, destroyed supply lines, and sabotaged communications. The CICICers, accustomed to precision and control, were unaccustomed to the chaos that guerrilla warfare introduced. Their technology, while advanced, became a hindrance in the face of human ingenuity. The CICIC relied on clear lines of communication and precise movements, but the human attacks created confusion and forced the invaders to constantly adapt. The very tactics that had won the CICI so many battles were now being turned against them by an enemy they had vastly underestimated. The CICIC had not expected their advanced forces to be worn down by an opponent who fought in the shadows. Their attempts to tighten their grip on the colony only led to further frustration, as every effort to regain control was met with more sabotage and ambushes. The humans, exploiting their intimate knowledge of the terrain, used hidden tunnels, dense urban centers, and underground networks to remain elusive. The CIC troops, unfamiliar with the colony's geography and culture, found themselves increasingly disadvantaged despite their technological superiority. The human guerrilla fighters did not just harass the CICIC, they adapted with each engagement. They studied the CIC's tactics and equipment, learning how to counter their advantages. When the CICIC tried to adapt by increasing patrol sizes or using drones to track down human fighters, the humans changed their tactics, targeting supply drops or isolating smaller groups of CICIC soldiers. Each new tactic the CICIC employed was met with a corresponding adjustment by the humans, who refused to fight the type of battle the CIC were equipped to win. This relentless resistance took its toll on the CIC forces. Their overwhelming superiority was eroded day by day. Morale among their troops began to falter as they realized that their victory was not as certain as they had once believed. What had started as a seemingly straightforward conquest was now becoming a prolonged battle of attrition, one for which the CIC were ill-prepared. The humans were not merely surviving but were systematically wearing down the invaders. CICIC commanders, facing mounting losses and dwindling resources, grew desperate. Under pressure, the CICIC began making mistakes. The once organized and precise invaders started to falter as their leadership struggled to maintain control over a battle that was slipping out of their grasp. Frustration turned into desperation as the CICIC forces began to lose their once impenetrable grip on the colony. The disciplined and organized army, which had prided itself on efficiency and control, now found itself scattered, fighting in small disjointed groups, unsure of where the next attack would come from. Recognizing the shifting dynamics of the conflict, humanity's military leaders saw an opportunity. What had begun as a desperate defense now transformed into a coordinated counteroffensive. Human commanders, who had spent the early stages of the invasion studying the CIC's tactics, began to launch precision strikes on key CICT targets. They identified weaknesses in the CIC's technology and exploited them with devastating accuracy. Human engineers, having analyzed the invaders' advanced systems, found ways to disrupt them, rendering much of the CIC's superior weaponry ineffective. Communication lines that had once allowed the CICC to command their forces with ease were systematically disabled by the humans. At the same time, human strike teams launched coordinated assaults on CICIC supply depots, crippling their logistics and leaving their forces in the field vulnerable. As the CICIC scrambled to regain their footing, the humans pressed their advantage. Guerrilla tactics that had initially worn down the invaders were now paired with larger, more organized attacks. Human forces dismantled CIC positions one by one, systematically breaking down the invaders' defenses. The CICIC, caught off guard by the speed and precision of the human counterattacks, began to retreat. Unable to maintain their hold on the colony, the CIC forces found themselves on the defensive. The tide of the battle had turned. The CICIC, who had entered the conflict so confidently, now faced the reality that their technological superiority had been shattered by humanity's relentless adaptability. The humans had not only survived the invasion, they had outmaneuvered and outwitted their enemies at every turn. CICIC commanders, who had once been certain of a swift victory, now scrambled to salvage what remained of their forces. Humanity's strength had been revealed not through advanced weaponry, but through their capacity to adapt, innovate, and persevere. What had started as a fight for survival had become a strategic counteroffensive that systematically dismantled the CIC invasion. The CICICO ship, so sure of their superiority, were now left grappling with the realization that they had gravely miscalculated. The CIC's retreat was chaotic. Their forces, once dominant, now found themselves struggling to organize a proper withdrawal. Ships that had once swept through human defenses with ease now limped back to CI territory, barely capable of coordinating their escape. On the ground, CIC soldiers, harassed by constant human attacks, scrambled to evacuate, leaving behind equipment and even some of their own troops as the colony slipped from their control. What had begun as a strategic and methodical invasion quickly devolved into a disorderly retreat. As the last of the CICICs retreated, it became clear that their attempt to conquer humanity had backfired spectacularly. Their once proud fleet, the pride of their empire, had been decimated. The survivors returned home with tales of humiliation and defeat, the remnants of their once mighty empire now left to rebuild in the wake of disaster. What was supposed to be a swift and decisive victory had turned into a prolonged and costly engagement that the CICA could not sustain. Forced to retreat in disgrace, their reputation as an unstoppable force lay shattered. For humanity, the victory, though hard-fought, was total. Battered and bloodied by the invasion, they had nonetheless proven their resilience and strength in the face of overwhelming odds. They had not only defended their colony but had driven out an empire that had once seemed invincible. Human forces, though smaller and less advanced technologically, had used their strategic brilliance and unyielding willpower to defeat an enemy that had underestimated them from the very start. In the aftermath of the invasion, the Galactic Council convened to reflect on the events that had unfolded. The Council, which had issued stern warnings to the CICEC before the invasion, now found themselves vindicated. Their message had been clear: never underestimate humanity. The Council members, who had long understood the dual nature of humanity capable of both peace and diplomacy, as well as fierce resistance when provoked, reaffirmed their understanding of humanity's unique strengths in warfare. The humans had not won because of superior technology or sheer numbers. They had won because of their adaptability, endurance, and ability to find innovative solutions in the face of dire circumstances. The Council recognized that humanity's greatest asset was not their weaponry or ships, but their indomitable spirit. Humans possessed an extraordinary ability to survive and thrive under the most difficult conditions, and when provoked, they could become a force unmatched by any in the galaxy. The Galactic Council took this opportunity to issue a renewed warning to any species considering aggression against Earth. Humanity was not to be provoked lightly. While they were a peaceful and diplomatic species by nature, any threat would be met with fierce resistance. The events of the CICIC invasion had only reinforced the Council's belief that humans, when cornered, were the most dangerous enemies in the galaxy. Their resilience and resourcefulness made them an adversary no empire, no matter how powerful, could afford to underestimate. Back in CICIC territory, the surviving commanders were left to grapple with the magnitude of their failure. The once proud empire, which had sought to expand its influence by conquering Earth's colonies, was now in disarray. The resources they had spent on the invasion were lost, their fleets decimated, and their reputation as an unbeatable force tarnished. The CICIC had learned a harsh lesson, one that would resonate throughout their empire for generations to come. In their debriefings, CICIC commanders admitted their grave mistake in underestimating humanity. The Galactic Council's warning had been dismissed out of arrogance, and now the consequences were clear. The CIC had believed their superior technology would allow them to easily subjugate humanity, but they had failed to account for the humans' adaptability and unbreakable will. The CICIC, who had crushed so many other species before, had finally encountered an enemy they could not defeat with brute force alone. As the CICIC Empire began the long and arduous process of rebuilding, one lesson remained: never underestimate humans. The surviving CICIC leadership, humbled by their defeat, vowed never to challenge Earth again. They now understood that while humanity may appear peaceful and diplomatic on the surface, there was a dangerous depth to their character. When pushed to defend themselves, humans could fight with a level of tenacity unmatched by any species in the galaxy. The CICIA realized they had made a fatal miscalculation by ignoring the warnings of the Galactic Council. Humanity, though outwardly calm and reasonable, was a force of nature when provoked. They had the ability to turn the tide of any battle, no matter the odds, and their refusal to surrender in the face of overwhelming force made them a terrifying adversary. For the CICIC, the lesson was clear, but it had come at a devastating cost. The CICIC Empire was left to rebuild from the ruins of its defeat, but the scars of their miscalculation ran deep. The tale of their failed invasion of Earth spread throughout the galaxy, serving as a cautionary lesson to others who might consider crossing humanity. The empire that had once been seen as invincible was now a symbol of hubris, its leadership humbled by a species they had dismissed as primitive. The defeat not only shattered the CSCC's confidence but also destabilized their entire empire. Their fleets, once the pride of their military, were decimated and their resources stretched thin. Rebuilding would take decades, and the shadow of their failure would haunt them for generations. For humanity, the victory had been costly, but it also solidified their place as a force to be reckoned with in the galaxy. The humans had not only defended their colony but had done so in a way that had earned them the respect of even the most powerful galactic factions. Their adaptability, resourcefulness, and sheer willpower had proven that they were far from the insignificant species the CICIC had believed them to be. In the aftermath, Earth and its colonies found themselves in a new position of power. Other species who had once viewed humans with a mix of curiosity and caution now saw them as equals, if not superior, in their ability to overcome adversity. The Galactic Council, which had long held humanity in high regard, reaffirmed its stance, warning any who might consider aggression against Earth that they would face an enemy unlike any other. Humanity had demonstrated not only their military prowess but also their strategic brilliance, turning what seemed like an inevitable defeat into a resounding victory. The survivors of the invasion, both civilian and military, became legends in their own right. Their stories were told across the galaxy, not just as tales of heroism, but as a testament to the human spirit. The engineers who had turned infrastructure into weapons, the civilians who had taken up arms to defend their homes, and the soldiers who had fought tirelessly against a technologically superior enemy all became symbols of humanity's unyielding resolve. As the galaxy reflected on the events of the invasion, one thing became clear: the CIC Empire had made a fatal mistake by underestimating humanity. The humans had proven that their greatest strength lay not in their technology, but in their ability to endure, adapt, and fight with a tenacity unmatched by any other species. This newfound respect for humanity changed the political landscape of the galaxy as alliances shifted and new partnerships formed. Species that had once kept their distance from Earth now sought to establish diplomatic ties, hoping to align themselves with the species that had demonstrated such formidable strength. Back on Earth, humanity's leaders took the opportunity to rebuild and strengthen their defenses, knowing that while they had won this battle, there were likely more challenges ahead. The victory over the CIC had given them a glimpse of the larger galactic stage, and they were determined to be prepared for whatever came next. Military strategists began studying the tactics that had worked against the CICE, refining them and incorporating new technologies to ensure that Earth would never again be caught off guard by an invasion. In CICIC Tori, the remnants of their once mighty empire were forced to come to terms with their new reality. The empire's leadership, once so confident in their superiority, now faced internal unrest and questions about their ability to lead. The defeat at the hands of humanity had exposed deep flaws in their strategy and over-reliance on technology. The CICIC commanders who had survived the invasion were forced to explain their failures to an increasingly restless population. The loss of resources and prestige weakened their hold on power, and factions within the empire began to vie for control, sensing an opportunity to challenge the leadership. The CIC's defeat also had a ripple effect throughout the galaxy. Empires that had once feared the CICCC military might now saw them as vulnerable, and some began to challenge their borders, seeking to capitalize on their weakened state. The CIC leadership, already struggling to maintain control, now faced the possibility of further territorial losses as rival factions sought to carve up their empire. The once dominant CIC, who had ruled through fear and power, now found themselves fighting for survival, much like the humans they had once sought to conquer. For the CICIC, the lesson of the invasion was a bitter one, and it marked the beginning of a long and painful decline. Their empire, once feared and respected, was now fractured and in disarray. The arrogance that had led them to believe they could easily subjugate humanity had been their undoing, and now they were paying the price. The survivors of the invasion, both military and civilian, carried with them the weight of their empire's downfall, knowing that their defeat at the hands of humanity would be remembered as one of the most significant turning points in their history. As the galaxy moved forward, the legacy of the CICIC invasion became a cautionary tale, a reminder that strength alone is not enough to ensure victory. The humans had shown that true power lies in adaptability, resilience, and the willingness to fight for what one believes in. And as the galaxy looked to the future, one thing was certain: humanity had earned its place among the stars, and no one would ever underestimate them again.